Hello everyone, and welcome to the video introduction to the new Scarlet Witch character to Marvel Puzzle Quest. In this video, I'm hoping to introduce you to the character and how she fits into the Marvel Puzzle Quest game. So I'm going to first start off with going over her color combination, which is purple, green, and blue. Now, this is actually really important because she is now the only 3-star character with this color combination. So if you want to team her up with somebody yellow, black, and red, she's the only character that can give you full rainbow coverage with them. So, for example, if you wanted to use Captain Marvel, she's the only counter rainbow color character. So that's one interesting thing to note about Scarlet Witch. She is being released as a promotional tie-in with the new Avengers Age of Ultron movie. So, what about her skills? What's she really gonna be great at? Well, let's look at her first skill, Reality Crush. It's a purple skill. It costs 14 AP, which is very high for a skill. And what does it do? Scarlet Witch warps space and time, imposing a crippling magical pressure and tearing her enemies apart at the seams. Deals 2,198 damage to the enemy team and stuns a random enemy for 5 turns. So she's going to be doing, assuming the entire enemy team is alive, 6,600 damage to the entire enemy team total. And she's sending a random enemy for 5 turns if you have 5 in purple. So is that a good skill or not? Well, let's compare the damage first, and then we'll come back to the stun. So 6,600 is how much she does for 14 purple. What other character has a purple that does entire team damage? That would be Deadpool. So let's look at Deadpool. His purple, Whales, 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 does 4,069 damage to the entire team, which means he does 12,000 damage about. So you have a 6,000 damage difference for the same exact cost. So I guess you have to ask a couple questions, because you never look at one skill alone. And one of those questions is Scarlet Witch as a whole a good character, and do her other skills make up for her lack of a weaker purple? Another question is, would you ever actually use Deadpool with Scarlet Witch? And I think that in the first question, I think yes, Scarlet Witch as a whole is generally good. And I think that you can't underestimate the stun, but the fact that the stun is random does take away a lot of the power. You can't stun a character that you know has enough AP to get off a skill next turn, so it kind of weakens the usefulness of that stun. But if you know that you're going to be killing all the other team members except for one, then it could be useful. And I think that another question about whether or not you would use Deadpool with Scarlet Witch, well, you do have a red, which could be used instead of, and because Scarlet Witch doesn't have a red. You have a black in terms of some additional color coverage. You wouldn't have the yellow covered for rainbow coverage, and you wouldn't have a black skill that actually is active, but you would be able to use his purple instead of her purple and put her in 5 for blue and 5 for green. So that is a possibility of using Deadpool with Scarlet Witch, if you want to be able to get that Whales out really fast. Overall though, would it still be worth it for her to have 5 in purple? Well, I think we're going to have to look at her other skills and then come back to that. So let's go back to looking at Scarlet Witch again. So what about her next skill, Hex Bolt? So this one only costs 8 AP, and at 5 covers, you can select one basic tile and you destroy that tile, and up to 4 random non-friendly tiles around it, generating AP. So this is basically going to be turning 8 AP into 5 AP. So what's so good about this skill? Well, one, besides the AP conversion, you can potentially knock out a tile that you choose, which as of right now, there's very few characters that have this ability. Captain America, Steve Rogers, is one of the only other characters that can target a specific tile to overwrite it, and this is one above that. You can also destroy it. I think that's a very useful skill, and I think you can use that to push ahead other skills. For example, you could get 8 green AP on the side because that was all that was available, and you're trying to get purple as quickly as you can to get that off, and you might actually end up being able to get purple off earlier because you destroy a bunch of purple tiles. This can also be good if there's a countdown tile going off, or any shield or protect or attack tiles. So I think this can be useful, but at 8 AP it's still not the best skill because it's not going to do that much damage. It's basically going to be very situational if it's good or not. So that's something to consider. I just wanted to, before we go into Arcane Incantation, I wanted to quickly go over the different levels of green. So when you're at 4, she destroys the same number of tiles, but she's limited in the types of tiles she destroys. So you can't use this to destroy any non-friendly tiles. You can only destroy attack, protect, or strike tiles. So just like bringing up Captain America and his red or blue to 5 helps him really up the ante, bringing her green up to 5 really is very strong. It basically means the difference between her being useful against goons and not being useful against goons. So if you're going to be using her a lot in PvE, I would strongly suggest getting 5 in green. Let's just go down one more time in green, just to consider what 3 is, and if it's at all possible to use. And the only difference is she destroys 1 less tile. So the difference between 3 and 4 is only 1 AP. So I don't think that makes much of a difference. So I think really you should either be going 3 or 5 in green. I think that it depends on what you're going to use her for, because like I said, purple could be very useful, but we're going to get back to that later. So let's look at Arcane Incantation at 5. Now this is a very interesting skill. It's a blue passive. Scarlet Witch begins a complex ritual. As it grows in power, the very fabric of reality seems to writhe. At the beginning of her turn, if one does not exist, she creates a 3-turn countdown tile that transforms 5 random adjacent basic tiles to purple. So there's a couple things I want to point out about this skill. One of them is that this countdown tile, you're only creating 1 at a time. Don't think that you're going to be having 2 or 3 countdown tiles out at once. So that does take away some of the appeal of this, because how often is this skill actually going to go off? It's going to be the 4th turn, at least, before it goes off. And you might end up setting up your opponent to be getting extra matches for purple. So it's a very risky skill, and it can go either way, but I think in general it will work out in the player's favor. So this helps you get purple really fast. Now, 3 turns is a long time to go off, and this skill could very easily not even go off in a match with such a long countdown. However, you're turning 5 random adjacent tiles to purple. So unlike Iron Fist, when he turns a bunch of random tiles to black with his purple, this is turning adjacent tiles. So think about it like this. If you have 1 tile, a countdown tile in the middle, that means you have 9 tiles around it. That means you have 5/9 chance that you're going to be making any tile purple. So that's pretty good, and it's quite possible you will end up getting a big cascade every time it goes off, and you can really power up your Reality Crush skill, or if you were using Deadpool, Whales. So I think this is very useful, but let's look at what happens if it's only at 4. 4, you're only transforming 4 tiles, so that really does reduce the chance of cascade a lot. While other skills that just add 1 or 2 more extra tiles that they create, I don't think that's such a big deal. For this skill, I think it matters a lot because they're all going to be right next to each other. So I think having that extra tile is huge. So I think that if you're going to go with blue, you should really have it at 5. If you have it at 3, the countdown tile is 4 turns. I don't really see any reason to put this at 3 unless you don't want to use a purple skill. And if you're using Scarlet Witch, you're going to want to use purple. So I think that blue at 5 is a given. There's really no point in using Scarlet Witch without having blue at 5. So let's just take a look again now after we've gone over everything else in purple. So right now she does 6,600 damage and stuns for 5 turns. If you're going to have her at level 4, you're dropping that damage down to 4,800, about 4,900. So you're losing over 1,600 team damage, and you're losing 2 turns of stuns. So I think it's very difficult to justify having your purple below 5 if you really want to use it. It's just not as useful. It doesn't do as much damage. The stuns shortened a lot. I think that you really are giving up too much to lower purple, even to 4. I think lowering it to 3 is just a bad idea, because now you only got 2 turns of stuns and you're losing another 600 damage. So I think you really have to decide if you want to use her purple or not. She really is a very tricky character, and I think she is one of those characters that having 5 is all the difference in her skills. You either just go all out and have it at 5, or you have it at 3. There's no 5-4-4 build or 4-5-5 build. You really have to go all out with her. So I think it comes down to the individual player if they want to look at using Scarlet Witch alone, or in a team with Deadpool, or if you want to be fighting against goons or not. I think that's really what it comes down to. If you plan on fighting goons and you think that you're going to be using Scarlet Witch with Deadpool, then I would have her 3-5-5. If you're planning on using Scarlet Witch alone in PvP, I would have her at 5-3-5. So at the end of the day, it's up to the player to decide what they actually think they're going to use her for. So tune into my next video. I'm going to show her in action. I think she has a lot of really good potential, and I'm going to try and show you a couple of teams. So tune in soon. Thanks.